So I'm going to bring you to my monopoly analogy. Because essentially, what is capitalism? We live in a capitalist society, at least on paper. But what does that mean? Essentially, in the most basic sense, it's a game of Monopoly. You go around the board, you collect income, you buy properties, and eventually one person wins. So how do you win the game of Monopoly? Well, you either just one person or a small group of people own everything. 2, before you get there, you break it up and start over. Or 3, you flip the board.
Right.
So I have a big fear that we're just going to skip number 2 for sure. We're not going to start over and break anything up.
Right.
We're never going to admit number 1 because it's never going to happen. I fear we're going to flip the board. And when you flip the board, that's chaos for everybody because once that board is flipped, you never want to clean it up. Let me tell you, Chris, when I was a kid, me and my brother played a game of Monopoly. It's actually the last game of Monopoly I actually played. It's probably 11 years old. And my brother was just wiping the floor with me. And his friend Frank came over, and we were just hanging out, and like they're both making fun of me. I eventually just go, F this, flip the board. And we didn't clean up until my dad came home and was like, who made this mess? Me, I cleaned it up. But I'll tell you, Chris, just a few weeks ago, my dad was cleaning the living room. He found a hotel underneath the radiator. So I have a big fear that the young people, my generation, are going to get so fed up with this corruption, so fed up with this system, we're going to flip the board. And there's no going back once the board is flipped.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the danger throughout history. And, I always say what happens, and again, I go back, just to give you some historical perspective. I mean, I hate to say this, but the children of the 60s that were protesting and burning their bras and, doing the whole thing, guess who's running the country now?
Them. That's the great irony.
Yeah.
That's the great irony. And honestly, Chris, now these Gen Zers who are just protesting on TikTok or, gluing their hands to paintings and throwing mashed potatoes on them, they're going to grow up and they're going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. I mean, pretty soon you're like, hey, I'm not part of the establishment. I'm anti-establishment. Then you become part of the establishment. You get in a comfortable house. You drive a nice car. You eat at good restaurants. And you're like, wow, man, do I really want to go back and do that? I mean, unfortunately, people are always looking for comfort.